Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. You have all been listening to me just harping about this ink level sensor system for the Pro-1000 that Precisioncolors Michael Lee developed and came up with. And at first it was just kind of a thought, an idea, a theory that something like this might actually work. And so the only caveat is that in order for you to be able to enjoy not having to worry about the use of chips, you still need them, but you get to disable ink monitoring. Well, that then opens up the problem. How do I keep track of my ink levels? Well, a sensor will do that for you. It will then trigger a light to go on two boards. You've seen my photos before. You've seen my demonstration videos. Once you see that light go on, that indicates that that particular position, which equates to a specific cartridge. In other words, if it's on the left and it's light number 4, then it will be cartridge 1, 2, 3, 4. And the sensor on that cartridge will also turn itself off. So that sensor will turn itself off. The corresponding light on the board will turn on. And that is a necessary double redundancy, if you will, that will absolutely let you know the system is working. Now, what will this do for you? It will allow you to refill your cartridges as they are already able to be refilled with whatever ink you choose to use. Hopefully it'll be a good ink, such as the one sold by Precisioncolors. And so then at that point you don't have to worry about installing $12 and $13 single-use chips every single time. You'll be able to use this system after you disable the chip on that particular cartridge. In other words, allowing it to continue to print, even though it thinks it's going to go empty, but in reality it is not, because you are topping off those cartridges. As each of them is being declared empty, you press the pause button for 5 seconds. That's the second one below the power button on your printer, and that will disable that chip and allow you to continue to print simply by refilling that cartridge back to full condition. Now, the catch will be that when a light is triggered, in other words, a matching cartridge requires refilling, it's going to have 20 ml. So you don't want to try to inject 80 ml into it. It's just not going to fit. Okay? So what we are coming up with is selling loads of only 60 ml. It'll be cheaper, and then will allow you to easily and very safely top off that particular cartridge back up to full condition. So it'll be triggered at 20 and you add 60. That will give you a total of 80 ml of ink in that cartridge. Now, the sensors will be pre-calibrated to trigger about 20. There's no way that we can calibrate those sensors exactly, because they are really not meant for this type of application. They are meant to determine liquid levels in big tanks, and I'm talking big tanks. So we have managed to make them work on something tiny like an 80 milliliter cartridge with ink in it. Right, so let's go ahead and jump over to Precisioncolors, and we will then take a look at the offering. It's not right out on the welcome page, but I found it. So let's go ahead and jump into the screen and we'll explore that a little bit. Alrighty, so here we are on precisioncolors.com. We're going to click on Canon 12 tank Pro-1000, and the last tab is the one we want to take a quick look at. So Image Prograph Pro-1000 ink level warning system. And again, I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. You just kick back and enjoy the Puerto Rican accent here as I read this explanation as to what it is that this sensor system will do for you. We developed a sensor system to take advantage of Canon's provider flexibility of being able to disable chips on the Image Prograph 1000. And that's very important, folks, because you know Epson will never allow you to do that. You could never get away with that with an EPSON printer. You still can. Even with the newer 2000s and 2100s and higher. Apparently you can get away with that. Even the 200, the Pro 200, the Pro 300, they still allow you to do that. Imagine that. So let's continue on. In fact, printers never really actually sense the real ink levels within the tanks, but estimate to the best of its ability based on usage. The chips are in fact useless in actually sensing empty ink conditions. However, there is a built-in circuit within the printer that indirectly knows that the external tank is empty, with its internal tanks have fallen in level because the external are unable to replenish it. So what he's referring to here is that these high-end Canon printers not only have the external tanks, in the case of the larger format ones, they actually sit vertically in the compartments. On the Pro 1000, they sit on the lower front edge. So right up front. And so they do not move. They just sit there and deliver ink to what? To the internal ink compartments. And that's a secondary stopping point for that ink before it reaches the print head and is able to be applied to photo papers. So once that secondary tank drops a certain level, it triggers a sensor just like your, let's just say, your toilet tank. When the water drops as you flush it, in most simple toilets, you have a float that will actually then trigger water to come and enter and begin to refill that tank. And once the float reaches the top, it closes that little valve and no more water can get in. So with these types of internal compartments, they have a sensor system that detects, hey, you have used up enough ink, Joe. Let's tell the tank that is in the very front of the printer to begin to deliver some ink to replenish that internal tank to the proper level. It's all about sensors. Okay, it's all about sensors here. So that's what it's referring to. So at some point, the internal tank will drop. It will demand to be refilled or re-topped off by the cartridge. And guess what? The cartridge ran out of ink. Bingo! It triggers the empty condition. That's it. At that point, you can do the magic of disabling ink monitoring. Let's continue reading here. When this happens, then the printer indicates an ink empty condition where in fact it had previously become empty a short period prior. What the chips do is enable this circuit to work. Canon allows users to disable the chip function, and it is described in their user manual. What is this? Is this the user manual? Okay. Oh, I bet you this is not the service manual. Boy, I got excited there for a minute. And so here is a link if you want to do that and download that PDF or access it automatically right here. In pages, oh, look at this, 756 to 760. To disable the function for detecting the remaining ink levels, press and hold the printer's stop button, I call it the pause button, for at least 5 seconds and then release it. Thus, it is perfectly safe to operate the printer without fully functional chips, but you will still need a chip present. The reason for that is that the chip itself contains the ID code for a particular color. So you still need that for color identification. It doesn't mean that when you look at your driver and you look at your ink levels that these channels disappear. No, they still are being displayed as a specific color, might it be yellow or chroma optimizer. It just shows that it is almost empty. And it warns you that if you continue printing, you may run out of ink. Well, we know better than that because we have already topped them off. The drawback to disabling the chip is not knowing when to replenish the ink to keep the printer functioning safely. Warning that the ink level is low will no longer appear when the printer chips are disabled. Precisioncolors has invented a real ink sensing system that detects when the ink level in the external tanks has reached a certain level. This system will warn the user when the external tanks have reached a similar level when Canon would have put up the low warning flag. Actually, it will do it a little bit sooner. My experience has been that when the low ink level pops up, if I take that cartridge out and weigh it, it will weigh about 15 grams higher or heavier than 32. 32 is bone dry. So that means basically you have about 15 ml of ink left. Well, we're going to warn you about the 20 ml mark, okay? So that'll be a little bit safer for you. It is precisely calibrated to detect approximately 20% of the ink is remaining and will indicate via a bright yellow light which color channel has reached the low ink condition. The user then takes action and tops off the tank by adding more ink, and the warning will go away automatically when this happens. This allows the user to operate the printer very economically without the need to replace chips and reset chips, etc. Well, there are no reset chips. So it is exactly what we always wanted printers to do. Simply tell us when it needs ink and we just replenish it and keep printing. Sounds like an eco tank, doesn't it? From EPSON. Yes, that's how they operate. This system is 100% completely compatible with the printer, as the printer never knows it even exists. That's because it's not connected physically in any way, shape, or form with the actual printer. Installation is simple and no electronic knowledge is required. The firmware updates for the Canon can be downloaded with complete confidence that it will not interfere with refilling whatsoever. The system, using advanced electronic sensors, physically detects the ink inside the tanks without intruding into the tank or electronics. There is estimating involved as with chips. The beauty is that we are able to perform this on the world's highest performing photo printer. Wow. Okay, and the price will be $199. Here are some photos that you can then examine. This is the system. This will be your left-sided board. This will be your right-sided board. This is your power connecting wire to both boards. In other words, this is your 5-volt USB type adapter. That's to bring basic power to this board, which will then be shared with this one. And here are the sensors. Each one of these plugs will connect to one of these plugs located on each board. Notice that everything has been etched and branded for you. And again, if you get brave and you wish to change the detection level, you can do that simply by removing the cap and turning a screw located about this point right here to the right or to the left, and that will detect either more or less. Here's a close-up of the boards. They have all been pre-calibrated, so there's no need to do that. When they come, let me go back. When they come from the seller, they will detect around 10 ml. I tested them out myself. But that simply is just too low for me. I need a little bit higher level cushion, if you will. Makes me feel a little safer. So that's the way that they plug in. Again, these are the lights that will go on, indicating that, say for instance, this position needs to be refilled. That light will go on, and the corresponding light on the sensor will turn itself off. This is your main power light. That means when that is on, the boards are receiving power. In order to be able to use this, because there's going to be lots of these relatively thick cables getting in the way, you have to leave that door open. Now the printer cannot operate with the door open, so you have to fool it. Internally lives an optical sensor that is triggered when you close the door, and it tells the printer that you are now ready to print. When you open the door, that sensor is no longer being blocked, and so it tells the printer that you want to change a cartridge, for instance. And on the LCD screen, you will see a animated how to replace your ink cartridges for those who need that kind of help. So you're gonna make this out of a piece of cardboard, relatively speaking, and I just use maybe 1/32 of an inch thick cardboard. You can get it from any kind of material. There's a template that will be provided. You just follow that template and cut it. I actually blacked out mine with a black marker just to make it even more opaque, although I don't think that's necessary. One thing, not a warning, but just a recommendation, because the door is always open, do not remove cartridges without first disabling that sensor. In other words, you need to remove this fooler or defeater, if you will, and then the printer will go into cartridge change mode. That's when you would push the cartridge in, pull it out, and top it off. Basically, you can just do that. Basically, by refilling it the normal way that we know of, or If you're really brave, you can drill the cartridges for refilling. 5/32 of an inch diameter hole, either here or here. Doesn't matter. That will give you the ability to just simply fill them like a refillable cartridge using a syringe and a needle. It'll be absolutely mess free if you do not try to add more ink than the cartridge can take. Remember, at that point, it will be about 20 milliliters of ink inside that cartridge. So to be safe, don't add anything more than 60. Okay? And you will not have any kind of spillovers. Then you plug it up and pop it back in. And then you insert this little fuller device here, the defeater, as we call it. And then the printer will go back to regular printing mode. It'll believe that you closed the door when you really did not. And here's a whole unit ready to roll. Okay, let's look at the requirements. You need a 5-volt DC source. So, who doesn't have one of those? If you have any kind of a USB type device that you can charge up using a regular phone charger, that's all it will take. So a USB outlet or preferred USB charger and a small screwdriver to attach the wires to the connectors. We're talking about this right here. Let's take a quick look again. Right here. You just unscrew those. They do not come off. They just loosen. The ends of these wires are already pre-treated. Just simply insert them in place and tighten. Insert them in place and tighten. Put the red on the top. Put the red on the top. Put the black on the bottom. Put the black on the bottom. Simple as that. Piece of cardboard to defeat door switch installation is essentially peel and stick. He's referring to the tape on the back of the sensors. Since each system is hand assembled, soldered, and tested, and sensors individually precisely calibrated, slight delays in shipping could occur, as it is only me doing this. Yeah, he's the man. He's doing that all by himself. Right now, as an introductory special, we're offering the system for $199, after which the regular price will be $238, and that's really not too bad, considering unless you buy bulk, these sensors are selling approximately for $9 to $12 each. That's 12 of them, plus the boards that have to be custom made, and then all of the soldering time that it takes to create each one of those boards. Videos. So he has put a link here. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what kind of a video he's posting for us. Oh, I got an ad. Let's go ahead and skip that ad. Canon IPF Pro-1000 Precisioncolors ink level sensor walkthrough. Okay, so this is the one when I initially got everything. You guys can watch that at your leisure. So make sure that before you buy any of this, but you got to do it soon apparently, make sure you watch all of my videos in the series. I actually created a playlist pertaining to the ink level sensor system. Let me walk you through that. And it is called the Pro-1000 Precisioncolors ink level sensor system. Click on that. And here are all the videos that you need to really pay close attention to before you go ahead and commit. This will walk you through everything you need to know, including I even showed you how to calibrate one of those sensors. So go ahead and take a look at these. This will help you make that decision before you pull the trigger, if you will, and get what I believe will turn that Pro-1000 into the perfect printer. I'll explain why. I'll give you my 2 cents, as always. All right, now, why would I say something that outrageous? Okay, the Pro-1000 is one of those printers you either hate or love. I love mine. I know what its idiosyncrasies are. I know how to take care of it. I know how to feed it. Believe me, it is not the beast you thought it was. And this system will get you to the point where now you can use absolutely fantastic inks, such as the ones being sold as the signature edition system of inks. Or if you wish, you want to spend a little bit more, you can use nothing but OEM. They provide you loads of OEM ink. No one in the world will provide you I think it's $34 or $35 loads of OEM ink, okay, that you can use and continue getting that top quality. But if you wish to save some more money, then you can use the 8 third-party signature edition and 4 OEM colors. It's kind of a hybrid ink set. It will still save you money, and it will provide you a seamless transition from OEM to the current new inks that you have installed. And why do I say that? Because it takes probably months for you to see the difference, if any. Okay, and that was the whole purpose of this, I don't know, call it exploration. It took a year to come up with this ink set. The idea being that if you just use the generic ink set made by whatever the company is out there, being sold by many US third-party ink providers, you will not notice the difference yet because you're still printing with OEM inks. At some point, months down the road, after all of that ink that lived internally in the printer is pushed out as you print, you will either see a difference gradually taking place, or you would have to constantly be creating custom profiles to take into account the slight differences in color rendition that are going to creep up on you unannounced. So the idea here is to not have to do that. So if you are 100% OEM and you're using profiles that were made for specific papers, but using OEM ink, you will still be able to use those profiles. You will not have to be creating partial profiles as the time goes by, as you continue to print. And more of that new ink starts making its way toward the printhead and becoming more apparent in the printer's output. So that was the whole thing, to come up with something that it would be unnoticeable. You would not see the difference. Okay. At some point, yeah, after you refill those cartridges again, by that point you are printing with that third-party ink set, that signature edition ink set, if you choose to use that one, and you haven't noticed a change. That's the whole idea. And so to add to that, normally you would have to replace the chip after every chip it reaches that magical empty condition. Remove the cartridge. You have to remove that front cap. Do I have one here? You have to remove this front cap. Make sure you don't damage it. It's not that easy to remove. There's a procedure video showing you how to do that in Precisioncolors site, but he already did it a couple of times. So that particular cap came off a lot easier than yours will. So it's very difficult to do. Okay, so you want to do that every single time? Sure, you'll have ink levels indicated, well, approximate ink levels. Why not just install the sensor system? And as each one of these cartridges reaches empty, you top it off. And you top it off how? By unplugging it. The sensor will be attached here. You pull it out of the printer, you put it on a level surface, you have a needle attached to a syringe loaded with 60 ml of ink. Pull the plug, inject the ink, put the plug back in, push it back into the printer. You are done. That light that was on will now turn off, and the light that was off on the sensor will now be on. You get what I mean? So the idea being that if both lights are off, something is malfunctioning. Okay? That will immediately tell you something is wrong. Okay? Now, if both lights are off, also something is wrong. Because at any given point, if you have enough ink in your cartridge, the sensor light on the board will be off, and the sensor light on the sensor will be on. And then when that drops to 20 ml, the sensor light on the sensor will go off, and the one on the board will go on. So it's backwards, but it will at least tell you, hey, I'm operating correctly. Okay? When one is on, one is off. When one is on, one is off. Okay? So that's how the system was designed. And it is working perfectly, folks. It really is. So take advantage of the early ordering. Remember, like he said, there might be a bit of a delay because these are handmade units. And every sensor is hand calibrated against a controlled cartridge. That's the way I did mine. If you guys go back and watch my video series on that, you will see how I did that. Okay, and If you're brave enough to attempt to do this yourself, good luck. I'll just buy the unit that's already ready to be installed. Okay, a lot easier, less headaches. All right, thank you for watching. And if you do choose to do this, it'll be the best investment you've ever made for your Pro 1000. Imagine a printer that outputs outstanding results. You no longer have to worry about chips. The EcoTank printers are now jealous. Okay, you can inject ink very easily as soon as you modify your cartridges. Okay, again, not a problem. What about waste ink? Well, you have a user replaceable waste ink cartridge. Not a problem. Other printers, they basically stop working. You have to send them in for servicing. Many other advantages that this printer provides you, and to me is just my number one printer at this point. P800 comes a little bit close behind as the second in the printer army in my back room back here. All right, I think that's about it. If you have any questions, any kind of suggestions, don't forget to just ask below and I will try to answer you. Try not to be too critical. Again, we have checked this out over and over again. It works and it's the best you can do at this point. Be glad that we can get away with something like this on a printer of the caliber of the Pro 1000. You cannot do that with the other brand, believe me. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Until the next time, happy printing, everyone, and bye-bye, everybody.